Welcome to Volume and Vision. Imagine someone quietly handed you an extra 20 hours every single week. What would you do with them? Would you finally start exercising? Learn a new language? Read more books? Build the business you've been dreaming about? Or simply spend more evenings with the people you love? Now here's the surprising part. Those extra 20 hours already exist. They're already yours. The only reason they feel invisible is because they're scattered across your week in tiny pieces that disappear without leaving a memory. Most people wake up believing they're victims of time. They blame their jobs. They blame their responsibilities. They blame traffic, family obligations, endless notifications, and the never-ending to-do list. Every evening they repeat the same sentence. I just don't have enough time. It sounds true. It feels true. But is it actually true? Let's meet someone we'll call Daniel. Daniel wasn't lazy. He worked hard. He left home before sunrise, spent 8 or 9 hours at work, replied to emails even after dinner, and collapsed into bed exhausted. He dreamed of becoming financially independent one day. He wanted to become healthier. He wanted to read books, improve his communication skills, and maybe even start an online business. Yet every dream ended with the same excuse. Maybe next year. One Friday night, while scrolling endlessly through his phone, Daniel suddenly noticed the time. It was almost midnight. He couldn't even remember what he had been watching. One short video had become another. Another became 20. 20 became 2 hours. Nothing about those 2 hours had made him happier. Nothing had made him smarter. Nothing had moved his life forward. He closed his phone and whispered to himself, "Where did my evening disappear?" That question changed everything, not because he found an answer immediately, but because it was the first honest question he had asked himself in years. Most of us don't lose our future in one dramatic moment. We lose it in 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, an hour spent worrying, 30 minutes spent checking messages that don't matter, another hour promising ourselves we'll begin tomorrow. One day disappears, then another. Weeks become months, months become years. Eventually, people look back wondering why their dreams never happened. The truth is simple. Dreams rarely disappear. They slowly get replaced by habits. Here's something almost nobody thinks about. We all receive the same weekly budget. Not money, time. Exactly 168 hours. Not 1 minute more, not 1 minute less. The richest entrepreneur receives 168 hours. A college student receives 168 hours. A world-famous athlete receives 168 hours. A Nobel Prize winner receives 168 hours. So if everyone receives the same amount, why do some people seem to accomplish 5 lifetimes worth of achievements while others constantly feel trapped? The difference isn't the clock. It's the choices made while the clock keeps moving. Think about a bank account. Imagine your bank deposits 168 golden coins every Monday morning. Each coin represents 1 hour. Here's the catch. You cannot save them. Unused coins disappear forever by Sunday night. You can't borrow next week's coins. You can't buy extra ones. And nobody can gift theirs to you. Wouldn't you spend every coin carefully? Of course you would. Yet that's exactly how time works. The strange thing is that we're incredibly careful with money. We compare prices before buying a phone. We search for discounts. We negotiate. We think twice before spending a few dollars. But we'll casually spend 3 hours scrolling through content we'll never remember tomorrow. We guard our wallets. We leave our calendars unprotected. That's a dangerous trade, because unlike money, time has no refund policy. You can recover lost wealth. People have gone bankrupt and become millionaires again. Businesses fail and are rebuilt. Careers restart. But no one has ever recovered a lost Tuesday afternoon. Every hour spent is gone forever. The real question isn't whether you're busy. Everyone is busy. The real question is whether your busyness is building the life you actually want. Imagine climbing a ladder for 20 years. You work harder than everyone else. You sacrifice weekends. You miss birthdays. You skip vacations. Finally, after decades of effort, you reach the top. Then you discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Hard work alone doesn't guarantee a meaningful life. Direction matters more than speed. Daniel slowly began noticing something interesting. Whenever people asked successful individuals how they managed to accomplish so much, they rarely said, I found more time. Instead, they said things like, I stopped doing things that didn't matter. I became intentional. I learned to say no. I protected my priorities. Those answers sounded too simple. Could life really change through such ordinary decisions? Daniel decided to test the idea. Not by changing his entire life overnight. Not by buying expensive productivity courses. Not by waking up at 4 in the morning. He began with one tiny experiment. For just 1 week, he would become an observer of his own life. No judgment, no guilt, no excuses, just honest observation. He carried a small notebook everywhere. Every hour, he wrote down exactly what he had been doing. Not what he wished he had been doing. Not what sounded productive. The truth. Monday evening. 40 minutes answering emails that didn't need immediate replies. 25 minutes checking social media. 15 minutes watching random videos. Tuesday morning. 30 minutes repeatedly hitting the snooze button. Wednesday afternoon. An hour spent in a meeting where he barely spoke. Thursday night. 90 minutes switching between 5 different apps without finishing anything. At first, the notebook felt uncomfortable. It was like holding a mirror that refused to lie. But by the 4th day, something unexpected happened. Patterns started appearing. His biggest problem wasn't lack of time. It was invisible leaks. Small decisions that looked harmless by themselves but became enormous when added together. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes waiting without purpose. 30 minutes distracted. Individually, they looked insignificant. Together, they quietly stole almost 20 hours every single week. 20 hours, almost the equivalent of a part-time job. Enough time to finish several books. Enough time to learn valuable skills. Enough time to transform health, relationships, and even income over a single year. Daniel wasn't shocked because he had discovered something new. He was shocked because those hours had always been there. He had simply never looked closely enough to see them. And that's when he realized one of the most powerful truths about life. You cannot improve what you refuse to measure. Before you manage your time, you must first discover where it is actually going. That single realization became the foundation for everything that changed afterward. And it all started with one simple decision. To stop guessing, and start paying attention. As Daniel closed his notebook at the end of the week, he expected to feel guilty. Instead, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Relief. For the first time, his life wasn't controlled by vague feelings anymore. It was supported by facts. The notebook had exposed a truth that had been hiding in plain sight. He didn't need a longer day. He needed a better plan. Most people believe productivity begins with doing more. But that's backwards. Real productivity begins with deciding what deserves your attention, and what doesn't. Think about a sculptor standing in front of a giant block of marble. The masterpiece isn't created by adding more stone. It's created by removing everything that doesn't belong. Your life works the same way. Success isn't about squeezing more activities into your calendar. It's about removing the ones that steal space from the life you actually want. The following Monday, Daniel made a promise to himself. He wouldn't try to become a completely different person. He wouldn't wake up at 5 in the morning just because successful people on the internet recommended it. He wouldn't buy another planner that would stay empty after a week. Instead, he asked himself one simple question. If I could accomplish only one meaningful thing today, what would it be? At first, the answer wasn't obvious. His inbox looked urgent. His phone buzzed every few minutes. People around him constantly needed something. Every task shouted, "Do me first." But urgency and importance are rarely the same thing. Imagine your house catches fire. Calling the fire department is urgent. But if you never repair faulty wiring, you'll probably face the same emergency again. Many people spend their entire lives solving urgent problems while never making time for important ones. Daniel realized his days were filled with urgent tasks that produced very little long-term value. Responding to messages, attending meetings, fixing tiny issues, running from one request to another. By evening, he was exhausted. But strangely, nothing meaningful had moved forward. Have you ever experienced that feeling? You work hard all day. You're busy every minute. Yet when someone asks, "What did you accomplish today?" you struggle to answer. Being busy can be comforting. It creates the illusion of progress. It isn't always progress. A rocking chair moves all day. It never goes anywhere. Daniel decided to identify the activities that truly changed his future. He called them his high-value hours. These were the moments when he created something instead of simply reacting. Learning a new skill, designing a better system, planning a project, thinking deeply, improving his health, strengthening relationships. Those activities didn't always feel urgent, but they produced results that lasted for years. Then he identified another category: the activities that consumed energy while creating almost no value. Mindless scrolling, checking notifications every few minutes, watching videos he never intended to watch, repeating conversations that led nowhere, constantly refreshing email. These weren't evil activities. They were simply expensive. Not expensive in money, expensive in life. One evening, Daniel made a surprising calculation. If he wasted just 2 hours each day, that added up to 14 hours every week. In 1 month, 56 hours. In 1 year, more than 700 hours. That's almost a full month of waking life. Imagine what someone could accomplish with an extra month every year. Learn a professional skill, write a book, become fluent in a new language, start a side business, train for a marathon, completely transform their health. The opportunity wasn't missing. It was quietly disappearing 1 hour at a time. The next lesson came unexpectedly. Daniel noticed that some activities gave him energy while others drained it. This confused him. Both required effort, so why did one leave him excited while the other left him exhausted? The answer was hidden in something psychologists often call flow. Those rare moments when you're so deeply involved in meaningful work that time almost disappears. Think back to a moment when you became completely absorbed in something you loved. Maybe solving a difficult problem, building something, teaching, writing, playing music, designing. Hours passed, but it didn't feel like work. Your mind became sharper instead of more tired. Daniel realized he experienced that feeling whenever he worked on creative solutions or helped solve complex problems. Those tasks demanded effort, but they also gave him energy. On the other hand, repetitive administrative work left him mentally exhausted. That realization changed another belief. Not all hours are equal. 1 focused hour spent doing meaningful work can be more valuable than 4 distracted hours filled with interruptions. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with water while someone keeps poking holes in the bottom. That's what constant distractions do to your attention. Every notification, every unnecessary interruption, every quick glance at your phone. Your concentration leaks away, and rebuilding focus takes far longer than people realize. Daniel decided to run another experiment. For just 90 minutes every morning, he would silence notifications, close unnecessary tabs, place his phone in another room, and focus on one important task. The first day was uncomfortable. His hand kept reaching toward his pocket. He wondered who might be messaging him. His mind searched for excuses to stop. After 15 minutes, he almost gave up. Then something changed. His thoughts became quieter. Ideas connected more easily. Problems that had seemed complicated suddenly became manageable. By the end of those 90 minutes, he had completed more meaningful work than he normally finished before lunch. He repeated the experiment the next day, and the next. Within a few weeks, those 90-minute sessions became the most productive part of his entire day. Nothing magical had happened. He simply stopped allowing the world to interrupt his thinking every few minutes. Around the same time, Daniel noticed another habit that quietly stole his energy. He said, "Yes, too often. Would you review this document? Sure. Can you join this meeting? Of course. Can you help with this small task? No problem." Each request seemed harmless. After all, he wanted to be helpful. But eventually he realized something important. Every time you say yes to one thing, you automatically say no to something else. Say yes to unnecessary meetings. You say no to focused work. Say yes to endless scrolling. You say no to learning. Say yes to pleasing everyone. You often say no to yourself. The word, yes, felt kind. But sometimes, the kindest word you can say, to your future, is, no. Learning to say no doesn't mean becoming selfish. It means becoming intentional. Successful people aren't successful because they accept every opportunity. They're successful because they protect the few opportunities that matter most. Daniel began responding differently. Instead of immediately agreeing, he paused. Then he asked himself, does this move my life in the direction I want to go? If the answer was yes, he committed fully. If the answer was no, he politely declined or scheduled it for another time. At first, he worried people would think he had become difficult. The opposite happened. People respected him more. His work improved. His promises became reliable. Because when he said yes, he truly meant it. Weeks turned into months. Something unusual started happening. His schedule didn't become emptier. It became clearer. Instead of constantly reacting, he began leading his own week. Every Sunday evening, he sat down with a cup of coffee and looked at the next 7 days. He blocked time for exercise before someone else could take it. He reserved evenings for family before work expanded into them. He protected learning time the same way companies protect important meetings. He planned rest instead of hoping it would somehow appear. This was perhaps the biggest lesson of all. If you don't intentionally plan your priorities, your distractions will gladly plan your life for you. Most people put everything into their calendar except the things that matter most. Meetings, appointments, deadlines, but not exercise, not reading, not meaningful conversations, not thinking, not personal growth. Then they wonder why those things never happen. Your calendar reveals your real priorities, not your spoken ones. Because time doesn't follow good intentions. It follows decisions. And Daniel was finally learning to make those decisions before the world made them for him. Without realizing it, he had already taken the first major step toward transforming his entire life. Not by finding more hours, but by giving every hour a purpose. The week still contained exactly 168 hours. But for the first time, those hours were beginning to work for him instead of against him. As Daniel became more intentional with his schedule, something unexpected happened. He started finishing his important work earlier than before. Not because he had become faster. Not because his workload had suddenly become lighter. But because he had finally stopped confusing activity with achievement. For years, he believed the busiest people were the most successful. The first one to arrive at the office. The last one to leave. The person who always looked stressed. The one constantly rushing from meeting to meeting. But then he noticed something interesting. The people making the biggest impact didn't always appear busy. They looked calm, focused, deliberate. They weren't doing everything. They were doing the right things. That realization completely changed Daniel's definition of productivity. Being productive wasn't about checking off the longest to-do list. It was about making meaningful progress on what mattered most. Think of an archer aiming at a target. If they shoot 100 arrows in random directions, they're working hard. But if only one arrow hits the center, what was the value of the other 99? Now imagine another archer who shoots only 10 arrows. 9 land exactly where they intended. Who achieved more? Life rewards precision more than endless effort. Daniel decided to become more precise with his attention. Instead of writing a long list of 20 tasks every morning, he began choosing 3. Just 3. Not the easiest, not the quickest. The 3 that would make the biggest difference if completed. Everything else became secondary. At first, this felt uncomfortable. His old habit kept whispering, "You should do more." But another voice slowly became louder. "Do what matters first." There is a powerful difference between being efficient and being effective. Efficiency means doing things quickly. Effectiveness means doing the right things. You can become incredibly efficient at climbing the wrong mountain. Daniel had spent years becoming efficient at responding to distractions. Now he wanted to become effective at building the future he actually wanted. One afternoon, while organizing old files on his computer, he found a folder labeled Goals. Inside were documents he had created years earlier. Ideas for a small business. A list of books he wanted to read. Fitness plans. Travel dreams. Learning objectives. Most of them had never even begun. Not because they were impossible. Because they were always postponed. He stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he asked himself a question that made him uncomfortable. If these dreams are important, why have they been waiting for years while less important things get done every day? The answer was difficult. Dreams don't disappear because we stop caring. They disappear because we never schedule them. We schedule meetings. We schedule appointments. We schedule deadlines for other people. But we rarely schedule time for the person we hope to become. That evening, Daniel opened his calendar. For the first time, he blocked time for goals that had nothing to do with work. Tuesday evening, strength training. Thursday morning, Reading and note-taking. Saturday afternoon. Learning digital skills. Sunday evening. Weekly reflection. Looking at the calendar felt strange. These appointments had no boss. No client. No deadline. Only a promise he had made to himself. And suddenly he understood something. The promises we break most often are the promises we make to ourselves. We tell ourselves we'll start exercising next Monday. We'll begin saving money next month. We'll finally read that book when life becomes less busy. But life rarely becomes less busy on its own. It becomes more meaningful when we intentionally protect what matters. Weeks passed. The changes were small, almost invisible. Daniel wasn't suddenly earning millions. He hadn't become famous. His life didn't transform overnight. But he noticed something far more valuable. Momentum. Momentum is one of life's greatest forces. At first, improvement feels painfully slow. A single workout changes almost nothing. Reading 10 pages doesn't make you an expert. Saving a little money doesn't make you wealthy. Practicing a skill for 30 minutes doesn't make you exceptional. It's easy to quit because the results seem invisible. But then something remarkable happens. Small actions begin connecting. Knowledge builds upon knowledge. Strength builds upon strength. Confidence builds upon confidence. Eventually, what once seemed impossible starts feeling normal. Imagine pushing a giant flywheel. The first push barely moves it. The second doesn't seem much different. Neither does the 10th, or the 20th. You might wonder if your effort matters at all. Then suddenly, the wheel begins turning on its own. Every push becomes easier than the last. Success often looks like magic to outsiders. But those living it know the truth. It's usually the result of hundreds of ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Daniel experienced this firsthand. Because he had protected time for learning every week, conversations at work began changing. He contributed better ideas. He solved problems faster. His confidence grew naturally, not because he pretended to know more, because he actually knew more. His manager noticed. Coworkers started asking for advice. Projects that once intimidated him now felt exciting. None of this happened because of luck. It happened because Daniel invested hours that most people never notice. There's an important lesson hidden here. Your future is created during hours nobody applauds. The early morning workout nobody sees. The quiet evening spent studying instead of scrolling. The extra practice after everyone else has stopped. The thoughtful planning session before the week begins. These invisible hours eventually become visible success. Unfortunately, most people give up before reaching that point. Why? Because they expect dramatic progress. But life usually rewards patience. Think about planting a tree. For weeks, nothing appears above the ground. Does that mean nothing is happening? Of course not. The roots are growing first. Without strong roots, the tree could never survive. Your habits are the roots of your future. People admire the fruit. Very few appreciate the years spent strengthening the roots. Daniel also discovered another surprising truth. Rest wasn't wasting time. It was protecting performance. For years, he believed successful people simply worked longer. Then he noticed something. Whenever he sacrificed sleep to finish more work, the next day became less productive. Simple decisions became difficult. Small problems felt overwhelming. Creative ideas disappeared. He was spending extra hours working, while producing lower quality results. It was a terrible bargain. So he changed another habit. Instead of treating sleep as something left over after everything else, he treated it as one of his most important investments. He protected it. He respected it. He planned around it. The results surprised him. He thought more clearly. He made fewer mistakes. His patience improved. Even his relationships became better because he wasn't constantly exhausted. Many people brag about sleeping only 4 or 5 hours. But imagine buying the world's fastest computer and refusing to charge its battery. Eventually, it doesn't matter how powerful the machine is. Without energy, potential means nothing. Your mind works the same way. Energy multiplies the value of every hour. Without energy, even simple tasks become difficult. With energy, difficult tasks become achievable. Daniel finally understood that managing time wasn't only about the clock. It was also about managing attention, managing energy, and managing priorities. Those 3 elements worked together. Ignore one, and the others became weaker. Strengthen all 3, and ordinary days became extraordinary. One rainy evening, Daniel sat by his window watching people hurry through the streets. Everyone looked busy. Everyone seemed to be chasing something. He wondered how many of them felt exactly the way he once did. Convinced there simply wasn't enough time. He smiled quietly, because he now knew a secret that had completely changed his life. Time isn't something you find. It's something you decide. Every yes writes your future. Every no protects it. Every hour becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. And whether we realize it or not, we're casting those votes every single day. The question is no longer whether you have enough time. The real question is, what kind of life are your 168 hours building? As the months passed, Daniel no longer felt like he was constantly chasing time. For the first time in years, he felt ahead of it. His days weren't perfect. Unexpected problems still appeared. Deadlines still changed. Plans still fell apart sometimes. But there was one major difference. His life no longer depended on perfect days. It depended on consistent choices. And that changed everything. One afternoon, Daniel was having coffee with an old college friend named Ryan. They hadn't met in almost 5 years. As they talked, Ryan suddenly laughed and said, "You've changed." Daniel smiled. "I hope that's a good thing." Ryan nodded. "You used to complain about being busy every time we met. Now you still have a full schedule, but you seem calmer." That sentence stayed in Daniel's mind long after they left the cafe. Calm wasn't something he had planned for. He had planned to become productive. He had planned to become organized. But somewhere along the way, something much more valuable had happened. His mind had become quieter. Why? Because every decision no longer felt like an emergency. He had already decided what mattered. That meant fewer daily battles with himself. Think about how much energy we waste making the same decisions every single day. Should I work out today? Should I read tonight? Should I save money this month? Should I wake up early tomorrow? Every repeated decision drains mental energy. Successful people don't rely on motivation every morning. They rely on systems. A system removes unnecessary decisions. You don't debate whether to brush your teeth every night. You simply do it. Imagine if your most important habits became just as automatic. How different would your life look 1 year from now? Daniel began designing simple systems instead of chasing motivation. Every Sunday evening became planning time. Every weekday morning started without his phone. Exercise happened on fixed days instead of when he felt like it. Reading became part of his bedtime routine instead of an optional activity. None of these habits were exciting anymore. And that was exactly why they worked. The greatest habits stop depending on excitement. They become part of your identity. Around this time, Daniel noticed another fascinating pattern. People often admired successful results. But they rarely admired successful routines. Everyone wanted the confidence. Very few wanted the daily practice. Everyone wanted financial freedom. Very few wanted years of disciplined saving and investing. Everyone wanted excellent health. Very few wanted to exercise consistently and eat mindfully. Everyone admired the harvest. Almost nobody admired the planting season. Life rewards what happens in private far more than what happens in public. One evening, Daniel attended a networking event where several entrepreneurs were sharing their stories. As people asked questions, someone stood up and said, "What's the biggest secret behind your success?" The room became silent. Everyone expected to hear about brilliant business ideas, hidden opportunities, or lucky breaks. Instead, one entrepreneur answered with a smile, "I learned to protect my mornings." Another said, "I stopped saying yes to things that didn't fit my priorities." A third replied, "I became comfortable being bored." The audience looked confused. Bored. That wasn't the answer anyone expected. But Daniel understood immediately. Modern life trains us to escape every quiet moment. Standing in a line, open your phone, waiting for a friend, scroll social media, watching television, check another screen at the same time. Our minds rarely experience silence anymore. Yet silence is often where our best ideas are born. Creativity doesn't usually appear during endless distractions. It appears during walks, long showers, quiet mornings, peaceful evenings, moments when your brain finally has room to think. Daniel decided to experiment again. Instead of filling every free moment with entertainment, he left small spaces empty. Walking without headphones, driving without music occasionally, sitting quietly with a notebook. At first, it felt uncomfortable. His brain wanted constant stimulation. But after several weeks, ideas started appearing naturally. Solutions to work problems, creative business concepts, personal goals, even conversations he needed to have with people he cared about. It wasn't that inspiration had suddenly arrived. It had probably been waiting all along. His mind had simply been too noisy to hear it. This led Daniel to another important realization. Time alone isn't enough. Attention gives time its value. Imagine giving two people exactly 1 hour. One spends it fully focused on a meaningful project. The other checks messages every 3 minutes, switches between tasks, and gets distracted by notifications. Both spent 60 minutes. Only one truly experienced 60 minutes. Focus stretches time. Distraction shrinks it. Daniel also became more aware of the people surrounding him. He noticed that certain conversations left him energized. Others left him discouraged. Some friends constantly discussed ideas, growth, learning, and opportunities. Others only talked about complaints, gossip, and problems they never intended to solve. He wasn't judging anyone. He simply realized something powerful. Attitudes spread. Optimism spreads. Discipline spreads. Negativity spreads too. The people closest to you quietly influence the standards you accept for yourself. If everyone around you believes wasting time is normal, eventually, you'll believe it too. If everyone around you values learning and improvement, those habits become normal instead. Without realizing it, we borrow expectations from our environment. Daniel became intentional about creating an environment that made good decisions easier. He placed books where his phone usually sat. He kept healthy snacks visible. He removed unnecessary notifications. He cleaned his workspace every evening. Small changes, almost invisible, but they quietly guided better choices every single day. Success often depends less on willpower and more on design. Imagine walking into a room filled with your favorite desserts. How long would pure self-control last? Now imagine walking into a room filled with healthy food. The second environment requires far less discipline. Your surroundings either support your goals or quietly sabotage them. Design your environment carefully, because eventually, your environment begins designing you. Months later, Daniel received an unexpected opportunity. A leadership position became available within his company. Years earlier, he would have doubted himself. He would have focused on everything he didn't know. This time felt different, not because he suddenly believed he was perfect, but because he trusted the person he had become. Confidence isn't built by positive thinking alone. It grows from repeated evidence. Keeping promises to yourself, showing up consistently, learning continuously, improving patiently. Every small promise Daniel had kept over the past year had quietly built his confidence. When the interview arrived, he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He simply shared what he had learned. How he organized projects. How he prioritized important work. How he helped others become more productive. How he solved problems before they became emergencies. Whether he received the promotion or not, he already felt successful, because success had stopped being a destination. It had become a way of living. Several weeks later, the company announced the decision. Daniel got the role. His colleagues congratulated him. Many said, "You got lucky." Daniel smiled politely. Luck, maybe, but luck alone doesn't explain hundreds of early mornings, weekly planning sessions, books read, skills learned, distractions avoided, promises kept. People often notice the opportunity. They rarely notice the years spent preparing for it. That's why preparation often looks like luck to those watching from the outside. As Daniel walked home that evening, he remembered the person he used to be. The man who believed there simply wasn't enough time. The man who hoped life would somehow become easier. The man waiting for the perfect moment to begin. That version of himself wasn't lazy. He wasn't incapable. He was simply living on autopilot. And that's where many people remain for years. Not because they lack intelligence. Not because they lack talent. But because they never stop long enough to ask themselves one life-changing question. Is the way I'm spending my time creating the future I actually want? That single question has the power to change an ordinary week into an extraordinary life. And Daniel was beginning to realize that his greatest transformation had never been about managing hours. It had been about becoming the kind of person who deserved them. Have you ever noticed something strange? When you're young, 1 year feels like forever. You believe there's plenty of time to figure everything out. Plenty of time to start exercising. Plenty of time to repair relationships. Plenty of time to chase your dreams. But somewhere along the way, the years begin moving faster. Birthdays arrive before you're ready. Another New Year's resolution comes and goes. You look back and wonder, where did all that time go? The truth is, time didn't disappear. It was simply spent. The only question is whether it was spent intentionally. One quiet Sunday morning, Daniel decided to do something he had never done before. He wasn't planning the next week. He wasn't thinking about next month's goals. Instead, he imagined himself 20 years older. He pictured an older version of himself sitting peacefully on a park bench. Hair slightly gray, face carrying the marks of experience, eyes filled with wisdom. Then he imagined walking over and asking that future version of himself one simple question. What do you wish I had done differently? The answer came almost immediately. I don't wish you had worked more. I don't wish you had answered more emails. I don't wish you had attended more meetings. I wish you had been fully present during the moments that mattered. Those imaginary words stayed with him. Because deep inside, he knew they were true. No one reaches the end of life wishing they had spent more evenings refreshing their inbox. No parent looks back wishing they had missed one more family dinner for another unnecessary meeting. No lifelong friend says, I wish we had talked less. The greatest moments in life rarely announce themselves. A conversation with your parents. A quiet walk with someone you love. Helping your child learn something new. Laughing with old friends. Watching a sunset without looking at your phone. These moments seem ordinary while they're happening. Only later do we realize they were extraordinary. Daniel understood something many people discover too late. Productivity isn't about filling every hour. It's about creating space for the moments you'll never want to lose. As his career continued growing, new opportunities kept appearing. Larger projects, greater responsibilities, more recognition. Ironically, success brought even more demands on his time. But this time, he approached them differently. Whenever a new commitment appeared, he didn't immediately ask, can I fit this into my schedule? Instead, he asked, what will this replace? Because every commitment has a hidden cost. Say yes to one opportunity. You quietly say no to another. If you don't decide consciously, life will decide for you. That single habit protected him from becoming successful on paper while feeling empty inside. Another lesson slowly became clear. Perfection is one of the greatest enemies of progress. For years, Daniel delayed important goals because he wanted the perfect plan. The perfect timing. The perfect conditions. The perfect opportunity. But perfection kept moving further away. One day he remembered something simple. A plane leaving New York for London doesn't fly in a perfectly straight line. The wind pushes it off course thousands of times. Yet it still reaches its destination. Why? Because it keeps making small corrections. Life works exactly the same way. You don't need a perfect week. You need a week where you're willing to adjust. Miss one workout. Don't miss the next. Skip a reading session. Open the book tomorrow. Waste an afternoon. Protect tomorrow morning. Progress isn't built by perfection. It's built by returning. Again, and again, and again. Daniel stopped measuring himself by flawless days. He started measuring himself by how quickly he returned to what mattered. That single change removed years of unnecessary guilt. Because guilt doesn't create change. Action does. One evening, while cleaning an old drawer, Daniel found the small notebook that had started everything. Its pages were worn. The cover was faded. Some ink had smudged over time. As he flipped through those early pages, he smiled. There were entries describing endless scrolling. Late-night television. Random distractions. Hours that vanished without purpose. At first, he almost felt embarrassed. Then he realized something beautiful. Those pages weren't proof of failure. They were proof of growth. Without honestly facing where his time had gone, he never could have decided where he wanted it to go. Growth always awareness. You can't improve a life you're unwilling to examine. Many people avoid looking closely at how they spend their days. Not because they're lazy, because they're afraid of what they might discover. But awareness isn't something to fear. It's freedom. The moment you become aware of your habits, you're no longer controlled by them. Daniel looked around his home. The bookshelf had grown. His health had improved. His confidence felt stronger. His relationships were deeper. His work had become more meaningful. None of those changes happened because one extraordinary opportunity suddenly appeared. They were created by thousands of ordinary hours used with intention. That's the secret hidden inside every remarkable life. Great lives aren't built during rare moments of inspiration. They're built on ordinary Tuesday mornings, quiet Wednesday evenings, peaceful Sunday afternoons, moments that seem too small to matter, until they become your entire future. Imagine receiving 168 blank pages every Monday. By Sunday night, every page becomes a permanent chapter in the story of your life. Some chapters are filled with courage, some with distraction, some with learning, some with excuses. The pages never stop arriving. But once they're written, they can never be edited. That realization changes everything, because time isn't merely passing. Your life is passing. Every conversation becomes part of your story. Every decision shapes your identity. Every habit quietly writes another sentence. The beautiful part is this: no matter how you've spent your previous weeks, a brand new set of 168 hours is always waiting. Not to erase the past, but to build a better future. You don't need to transform your entire life tonight. You don't need to become a different person by tomorrow morning. You don't need complicated systems or expensive courses. You only need one honest decision. Decide what truly matters. Protect time for it. Repeat that decision long enough. And one day people will call you disciplined, successful, lucky. They'll admire your results without realizing they were created one ordinary hour at a time. Remember this whenever you feel overwhelmed. You are not trying to win an entire year today. You're simply deciding how to spend this hour. Then the next. Then the next. Eventually, those hours become weeks. Those weeks become years. Those years become a life you'll be proud to remember. So before this video ends, I want to leave you with one final challenge. Take a piece of paper today. Write the number 168 at the top. Then ask yourself one question. If these were the only hours I had this week, how would I spend them? Answer honestly, because your calendar doesn't lie. Your habits don't lie. Your priorities don't lie. They quietly reveal the future you're creating. And here's something worth remembering. The world doesn't need a busier version of you. It needs a better version of you. A healthier version. A calmer version. A wiser version. A version that spends time on things that create lasting value instead of temporary distraction. The life you've always imagined isn't waiting for extra hours. It's waiting for better choices with the hours you already have. Thank you for spending part of your valuable 168 hours with us today. If this summary changed the way you think about time, don't let the lesson end here. Pick one idea from today's video and put it into action before this day is over. Small actions, repeated consistently, create extraordinary lives. If you enjoyed this journey and want more life-changing book summaries that help you grow smarter, think deeper, and live with purpose, make sure to subscribe to Volume and Vision and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Until next time, remember this: your future isn't built someday. It's built today, one intentional hour at a time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.